Welcome, everyone, to the AI Risk Reward podcast. This is your host, Alec Crawford. Our very special guest today is Colin Constable, co-founder and CTO at AtSign. Welcome, Colin.
Thanks, Alec, for having me. Very pleased to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, great to have you. This is going to be fun. Let's start with your early days. What initially drew you to the field of telecommunications and network architecture?
Oh, it was a very, very, very long time ago. And I was looking to get out of school, did not like school. And I had this dream job that I wanted to go to, which was in the Royal Navy. I'm a Brit. And I wanted to be an artisan. That was my dream job. I found out in the interview I was colorblind, so I better find another job. And I'd always be playing with electronics, and there was a job for a apprenticeship at British Telecom. And I spent over a decade at British Telecom. It was a glorious place to learn stuff, just as we were moving out of the electromechanical world and very old 300 baud modems into the digital world that we live now. So I lived as much as I could in that world, and enjoyed every moment of it, seeing the technology change literally month by month. It was
Amazing.
fascinating.
Yeah, I still remember what the connection tone sounds like for a 300 baud modem. It's a short
Yeah.
list of people who know that, left in the world who know that. Now, you must have had some interesting early experiences or mentors that played a pivotal role in shaping your career path. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the early days, I was, as I say, an apprentice, and there's a gentleman there called Les Box, and Les Box ran the apprenticeship program, and he gave me lots of words of wisdom and sort of shaped my career in the early days. And it was really Les that said you should do the apprenticeship, you should stick with me, learn as much as you can, and he encouraged me actually to leave British Telecom. Um,
Wow.
And his argument then, I remember sitting down with him as a young man, and his argument was, one day it will all pay off. You should leave BT, go do something, and it will all pay off. And I thought he was talking below me. Fast forward to when I'd started working in another company, Credit Suisse, and we decided to do an outsource of our network and our security at Credit Suisse. And guess who won the contract? That would be British Telecom, $1.4 billion. So I know
Wow.
my apprenticeship was expensive, but it wasn't that expensive.
Yeah, I think I
So
might have
credit
been
to
there
Les.
when they did that conversion too. So that was a really big deal. And by the way, those turrets were amazing too. The
The
BT
turrets are
turrets
amazing. Yeah,
when
yeah,
I was
absolutely. Yeah,
when I was
amazing
trading. It
technology.
was super cool. So pivoting a little bit, is there a book or piece of literature that has profoundly influenced your personal or professional life?
So the one book that keeps coming back to me was a recommendation to me that I should read it by a gentleman by the name of Chris Swan, who I was working with back then, and he is actually one of our engineers here at AtSign these days. Is a book called Accelerando by Charles Stross. It was written, I think, in '96, if I remember rightly. The book is open source, so you don't have to buy it if you want to go read it.
Wow.
It's pretty deep. But I would recommend everybody listening here read at least the first two chapters. Um, I had dreams after reading just the first two chapters. I read it, it was probably 97, 98, whatever, when it was just came out. And it was describing the future that we live in now, or we're just about to enter, where everybody has their own personal AI. You can't tell whether
Super
you're talking
cool.
to the real person or the AI. And I won't ruin the rest of the storyline, but just a few opening chapters were still stick with me. Just
Super
an
cool.
amazingly well written book. Yeah,
That's super cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to create a summer book reading list for my podcast guests. so, so, look, your career spanned several major roles from Deutsche Bank Labs to founding AdSign. What were some key decisions or projects do you feel that led you to where you are today?
so I think a lot of it boils down to luck and being into the right place, but often it boils down to saying yes when you really are not going to be comfortable about saying yes. So saying yes to, we need somebody to look after the internet presence at Credit Suisse. Anybody with a sensible hat would say, that's a crazy job, I don't want to do that. I just said yes and fell into it, and then met a lot of people and had a lot of challenges, but it sort of shaped my career without a doubt. Saying yes to starting AtSign. I mean, AtSign really started as an argument. I mean, it literally did start as an argument between myself and one of my co-founders, Kevin. And there was so much there. They said, you should just leave your job and start a startup because there's so much there. And again, I've never started a startup. I mean, Kevin and Barbara, my co-founders, are startup junkies. I love the world of startups and sort of, what do we do? How do we do this stuff? I remember the adage, right? Just say yes. So yeah, I'm here because I said yes.
Well, you've got that Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man. So just for the audience, if you haven't seen it, he basically effectively takes it back to say yes to everything. He learns Korean, he learns how to play the guitar, and then it all comes together at the end of the movie, basically.
Yeah.
Well, that's all.
I've lived some of that life without a doubt.
Yeah.
It takes a little bravery or a little stupidity to say yes. But I'd kick myself if I didn't say yes to these things. Yeah, amazing.
Well, let's drill down a little bit more about the origin story of AtSign, which you're saying is basically was a bet or something like that.
It was an argument. Yeah, it was definitely an argument.
Yeah.
So myself and Kevin, my co-founder, we've obviously been in the tech industry for both a long time, and we were arguing about the state of the internet. And what that really meant was the internet sucks. I mean, sucks really badly because I can't manage my own data. Everybody else seems to have my data, and I can't control it. And it just drives me nuts that every service I log into, A, I have to log into it, and then B, I have to give them all my information. Then, well, I don't believe you. Prove it's your email address, prove it's your phone number, prove that you are who you are. And you have to do that for every single service. And that's, I mean, it's the world we live in now just drives me crazy. And you can you can make some compromises and get some third party in the middle to answer some of those questions for you. But it's still like you're not in control. And our argument basically was boiled down to, we both agreed the internet sucks for different reasons. But Kevin said, what are we going to do about it? And I thought, well, let's describe the problem. And Kevin swore blind that it was me that said this, and I'm going to swear blind. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, so he can't argue anymore. So it was he that said this. What's the simplest way to assert an identity on the internet? And after a few coffees and a little bit more debate, the simplest way to assert an identity on the internet is a unique string, just a unique string of characters. And if you own that unique string of characters, you can be identified, you can be connected, you can cut your own cryptographic keys, and you can share data with somebody else who has a unique identifier on the internet. And that was the idea. We didn't know what to call those unique identifiers, they're just strings. But we settled on AtSign. Actually, there's a funny story behind that as well. Our lawyer came up with the name of the company, wasn't us. So we pitched our idea, and he says, what's the name of the company? We didn't know. So he came up with the idea of the at company. So we ran with that for a little while, but we couldn't get the at company because the at symbol in DNS is not allowed. So another bit, we call this at magic. It's been very consistent through the company. Magically, AtSign.com became available because a poor company in Texas, a signage company, went out of business, and they were selling their AtSign.com. So we grabbed that, and over time we became just AtSign, not the at company.
Wow.
And so that once you have your unique string, we had two barriers to entry when we originally came up with the idea. Of the original argument was well over a decade ago, and they were, cutting cryptographic keys is hard, it's difficult, takes time, nobody's got time. That's been solved, right? So 6 years ago when we started the company, that's been solved. You can cut a cryptographic key very, very easily these days. And the other thing was we were using DNS in our original code to be the database. So we had this sort of strange mixture of blockchain was pretty cool back in 2014. So a bit of blockchain, a bit of DNS, and magically it will work. And yeah, it did work, but it wasn't going to scale. And then the Redis guys came onto the scene with a horizontally and vertically scalable database. So that could be a directory. We had directories, keys at the edge. All we needed was a protocol to join those two ideas.
Wow.
So that's what we started writing, was a new internet scale protocol to allow people, entities, and things to communicate privately across a hostile network, and allow people, entities, and things to communicate without a third party, and allow services to log into you rather than you log into services. So change the whole paradigm.
Yeah, super cool. So tell us more about that. What companies are using this right now? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the plan is, we are very big proponents of being open source. So we started an open source project, and you can find it on GitHub. AtSign Foundation is the sort of overriding repo, and started writing code. We are older folks, so we try to encourage many younger folks to come into the company, and that really started with a massive focus on interns. So in our first year as a company, we had, I think, 4 times more interns than we did employees. And some of those interns are still with us, which is, I'm very, very proud of that. Just amazing. So we started writing code, got the protocol written. We still use that protocol today. But we found out pretty quickly that although I like protocols, not many other people do. They actually would much prefer to have an SDK. And so we wrote SDKs that people could communicate. And we started demoing that. And some of those demos have turned into companies. So there's a company called AtCrypto that uses our underlying platform for a blockchain, a private blockchain, that is so lightweight that you can run on mobile phones. So you can have private blockchains that are on mobile phones using our underlying technology for communicating individual blocks, which is super cool. That's being tested at the moment in telcos for various use cases, but making sure that everybody has the right data at the right time is a pretty good use case. We're used in another company called Zeta Health, based out of Florida, to allow policy essentially to be pulled out of the technologist's hands and put into doctor's hands. So a doctor can say, do you want to use this MRI in another hospital? Sure. And then they use our technology to get the right connectivity to the right place at the right time, but under governance of the hospitals rather than the technologists, and a whole bunch of other sort of magical things there. And then some things are just happened by accident. So we used to do a demo of, as I said, I'm a hardcore technologist. I like to use things like SSH to be able to remote into things. If your listeners know what that is. And you always have to have a port open to be able to log into SSH. And ports are essentially what bad actors use to get a hold of your infrastructure. So what if you could SSH into a machine that has no ports open? That sounds like a good demo. So we did that demo, and we would show it to people, and they would say, well, this app platform thing that you've done with all the AtSigns, that's interesting, but that no ports thing, that I'll buy that now. So being a startup, we heard buy that now, we had to turn that into a product. So that demo is now a product called No Ports. And as of this week, we have lots of customers, but the one that tickled my fancy this week was we have a gentleman using us in Botswana to get access to devices behind Starlink.
Oh, cool.
It's just amazing how far that's really tickled me, the fact that we've got people using it on ships and what have you to be able to get access to infrastructure but
very
would
cool.
typically be invisible.
So, what other emerging technologies or AI applications particularly excite you right now? Not necessarily your company, but anywhere.
So I think the whole agentic movement is what is the most exciting thing, because it's a thing that's going to be impactful. Most of the stuff we see in the AI world is, sort of behind the scenes stuff. It's sort of, that techno world that doesn't affect everybody.
Hmm.
As soon as you start moving to agentic AI and then interacting with real world stuff, so imagine this interaction and the crossover with that I'm starting to see, which is agentic AI with the IoT world. So as soon as AIs can start, affecting real atoms and moving things and touching things and all the rest of it, I think it gets interesting. Now, we've already seen that to a certain extent with self-driving cars,
Hmm.
but imagine self-driving everything, right? So I think we're just at the beginning of that stuff, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I see where we can fit, um, but I can't predict exactly what's going to happen. And that's what's really interesting. Like when you can see that IoT and AI have to join, and yet we're not too sure exactly what all those use cases are. And we see magical things coming out of Boston Robotics or whatever. Um, yeah, that's super exciting. I don't want to do boring stuff. Nobody else wants to do boring stuff, but machines really like doing boring stuff there, and they're really, really good at it. And being able to interact without having to go down to the programming level and just use natural language. Yeah, all of a sudden we're living in some sort of sci-fi movie, or we're in the Accelerando world.
Yeah. Well, look, you're talking about trillions of devices, trillions of
Yeah,
people, hundreds of thousands of applications and agents. Um, that's when we start talking about privacy, right? We all need private AI. This is a huge problem right
yep.
now, and it's just going to get worse. So tell us your thoughts.
So yeah, I think what we haven't had until we started working on AtSign is a cross-boundary technology that allows people, entities, and things to talk to each other privately. So this is our dream when we started the company 6 years ago, and I look back to our PowerPoints that we had back then. We talked about people, entities, and things, and private AIs being part of the entities, and most people back then didn't understand what the hell we were talking about, and that's fine when you're a startup. But it's coming into vivid focus now, that if we move all of our AI back centrally, that's probably a bad thing, right? So we don't want to be moving all our stuff centrally, but we all want to use the models that are created centrally, because the models are really useful. So what I'm starting to see, and you're probably seeing as well, is private instances for inference. So getting smaller and smaller models that are more and more accurate on individual topics, which strangely echoes exactly the way human society works, right?
Hmm.
So there are specialists that have really good models in their heads, to be a doctor, to be a mechanic, to be an engineer, to be whatever. And sure, they have sort of baseline ideas around other stuff, so there's context. That's what we're starting to see in the AI world. Big mega models, although they're super interesting, they can't do everything, and they can't be at the edge where things need to things need to happen as fast as possible. And speed of light gets in the way. Distance equals speed of light, which equals latency, which equals if you want to make a decision in the car, you want to be in the car to make the decision. Um, so that means you want to be able to run your own inference engines on models you trust, and you also want to be able to, if you don't know, guess what we do as humans? Um, we go ask a friend that we trust, right? Or we get a second opinion. How do you do that in the world that is basically built for the web, right? You don't, right? So you have APIs, you have API keys. Yeah, news this morning, some people lost some API keys. Guess what? People will continue to lose API keys. That's sort of crazy that we're using essentially late 90s technology for the technology we're using now. What if every people entity and thing has an AtSign, they have their own set of keys, and they can communicate directly, which is mirroring what we have in society with humans, but in the world of agentic AI. That's what we're building now. That's what you can have right now, and so that's why it's super exciting. We were lucky enough to aim our company to where the puck was going to be rather than where the puck was.
Yeah, amazing. So what about, so look, there's a lot of talk about quantum cryptography and being able
Yeah.
to crack, current sets of codes. Like, how do you think about that at AtSign?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's really really important. One of the things we learned is good architecture and engineering gets you out of trouble. So we built the platform first. So we're a 6-year-old company with a product that really sort of hit the road maybe 2 years ago. So we were in R&D for almost 4 years, and we had things going out into the production trying to learn, but we built the platform first, and that means we had to build into that platform some sort of core truths to make sure that we didn't like other startup companies, I guess, build a product then try and cajole the architecture to work. We actually did it the other way. So thank you to our investors for believing us. I think we're reaping the rewards. In terms of cryptography, we know that quantum computers potentially can crack our and things like our RSA, asymmetric key, PKI type stuff. So given that, the best way to engineer yourself out of that is not to be dependent on any cryptography inside your core. So our protocol doesn't care about cryptography. It just moves around strings. All the cryptography is done on the edge. So if you want to plug in a new bit of cryptography, guess what? The edge just does that, and it will work. The other thing we learned was make sure that all your cryptographic and hashing algorithms are in a single place. So there's a single library. That got named in our company as CHOPS, so cryptographic hashing operations, so CHOPS. So if you want to support a new maybe Xkyber, you wanted to support Xkyber, put it into CHOPS, extend CHOPS, and all of a sudden you can have all the components that use that code can use a cryptography. That's not generally what happens. I think we've got a bit of a mess ahead of us. Probably 2030s, probably the latest you can sort of fix this stuff. You've probably got libraries dotted all over the place. If you're a large enterprise and tracking them down, you need to start now. And I'm seeing that in government sort of nudges right now. So then this team have done an incredible job of sorting through which algorithms we should worry should start adopting that are going to be quantum safer. Whether they will be in the future, I don't know. It's an arms race. So being able to change your weapon of choice is probably the way to deal with it. And that's the way we're dealing with it, and allowing people to extend into if they have their own cryptography that they prefer, then they can do it at the edge. So long question for a simple long answer for a simple question, but that stuff is very very important. It has to be done on the edge, and it has to be done in a single place so that you can upgrade software as new threats emerge.
Yeah, great ideas. And in terms of using AI yourself, like there are new apps and all kinds of cool stuff to do with AI literally every day, let alone every week or month.
Yep.
What have you adopted? What are you using yourself right now?
So myself, I use it when I'm coding. To check my code, which is normally pretty poor, but I'm normally testing ideas. I have good engineers around me, but there's often often a case where you know somebody's written this code before, and you can't be bothered to find it. So it's much easier to type it in and then review the code and cut and paste it, put it in. So I use it as a productivity boost. I think that's very good for small components. I don't think AI coding's not at a level now where you can say, yeah, I've got this really good idea. Get a good idea. It's called AtSign. I'm just going to type it in, give it all the ideas, and code's going to come out. We are nowhere near that level. But if you've got a snippet that somebody probably else has coded in the past, and you want to have it in the language of your choice, AI does a really good job of that. I got an example for you. So I've been working with using our technology to get answers back from the LLM at a distance. So you run your own private LLM, and you want to be able to use that LLM on a lightweight device. So you've got a big LLM in a data center somewhere using big chunky GPUs for inference, and you want to access it via your mobile phone, but you don't want anybody else to be able to see it, right? So you package up that stuff, and you don't really want to have your API out on the internet. But how are you going to get it? Well, we can help with that using our platform. It's invisible to everybody else, but you can see it. But obviously, the LLM takes a little bit of time to come back to you with an answer. So I wanted using the Braille character set, a little sort of spinner using Braille. Now, could I have written that? Probably would have taken me an hour or so to write it, because it's fiddly. It's really fiddly stuff. But I could go to an LLM and say, write me some code that gives me a spinner using the Braille character set, and boom, it popped up in less than a second.
Wow.
And the code worked, right? So that does save me an hour, right? Could I have done it myself? Yeah, but was I going to? No. Yeah. So using AI for those sort of things, I find incredibly useful.
Is there a specific AI or app that you like using for
my own
purposes?
private instance? Yeah, so I I use a llama and jump around depending on the thing I'm doing at any particular time. I'll pull in the particular model that I need. So some of my frames are still Llama 3.2. It runs at about 4 gig of memory. I can run it on my local machine, and a relatively new graphics card. It works fine. And if I'm doing security work, White Rabbit Neo does a really good job of sort of remembering the Nmap rules, and all the security stuff is difficult, and it does a really good job of looking through configs and saying this is good or this is bad, right? So you have an expert by your shoulder. So Kevin, my co-founder, used to always say, and he'd worked in the AI world since the 80s, and he said, if you want to look to the future of computing and future of AI, you should look to the world of chess. Like, the world of chess, tell me more. And he said that the best games of chess at the moment are what they call centaur chess. It's not, obviously, computers can beat humans pretty easily, right? I mean, you can be a grandmaster, humans going to beat you. And computers can play computers, but the best chess players are computer and AI working together is really powerful, and they call that centaur chess. So you have centaur players playing centaur players. So when I'm coding, I just consider the LLM by the side of me as an extension of me.
Yeah, very cool. So turning to our advice section, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten, either at some point in your career, personal life, whatever?
Oh, good question. Probably goes back to a conversation I had with a lady called Eileen Murray. She's very well known in the financial world, and I was sat down with her, and I can't remember why, but she basically said, I never learn anything from people that agree with me, and boy, have I learned a lot from you.
What a great line. What a great line.
And so myself and Kevin will get very argumentative and really enjoy the argument until we realized that we were both arguing on the same point, but we had a different viewpoint, and we get really upset that we weren't having a proper argument. So being able to have an argument means you're learning. It's not conflict. It means you're learning, and somehow that is something that we seem to have lost. But I harp back to Eileen every day, because I need to search out for people that can disagree with me, because then I can learn something, right? Because if you're both agreeing, then one of you is redundant.
Yeah, I'm happy to disagree with you on one thing right now, which
Awesome.
is that centile chess was the thing 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And people call it centaurs as well, right?
Yes,
Human.
exactly. Yeah.
And unfortunately, centile chess loses to AI now.
No, that's great. That's great. We should
The
look
human
to
eventually makes a mistake, and the other AI just jumps
AI.
in. So
yeah, and I think Kevin's absolutely right. Then, so we looked at chess to the future, and centile chess was, when we started the company, and he's right. He's saying, look to the world of chess to find the answer. So AIs playing AIs together, awesome. Bring it on. Again, I learned something. It's good. And unfortunately, we agree with each other. So it wasn't a proper argument.
So continue our advice section. For a CEO considering integrating AI into their business, what strategic insights can you share?
I guess number one, don't believe the hype, right? Just try and cut through the hype. And the next question is going to be, well, how do you cut through the hype? Find use cases, find people that are explaining how they're using it. Speak to the person that in your organization, perhaps, that has grand ideas and probably isn't being listened to. And somewhere in between those grand ideas and not being listened to and the practical implementation that other people are doing is your edge. And then chase after that edge. There's definitely things to be had, but there's also an awful lot of money you could spend into something that's going to do absolutely nothing. And that's why you need this combination. Encourage arguments.
Yeah. Well, what's super interesting is, and what we see is, we'll go into a company and deploy our software and form a focus group, and we'll get 10 ideas out of the focus group.
Right?
Yeah. And a lot, they're not AI experts. They don't really know what AI can do and not do. And 5 ideas will be viable. 4 will be too hard right now, but maybe easy 3 or 6 months from now.
Yeah, exactly.
And 1 will be illegal. So you definitely gotta be careful about that. Anyway.
Yeah. 100%.
So we're going to shift to the last section of the show, which is our lightning round, where I mention things and ask if you think they're underrated or overrated and why. So I'm going to start with off-roading in your Jeep around the Sierras, underrated or overrated?
It's terrible. Nobody should do it. I should have the whole place to myself.
All right, so we're going with a fake overrated there. Being a pessimist, underrated or overrated?
Overrated. It drives me crazy when somebody says, I just want to be difficult just because the reason I want to be difficult. I'm like, just leave the room. I don't care. When I actually, that's not a proper argument. Bring a proper argument. If you're going to disagree, you have to also bring a solution. So you can't just be a pessimist just for being a pessimist. That's just crazy. I'm pretty emotional about that one.
The Internet of Things, underrated or overrated?
100% underrated. It hasn't had its time yet. I think this strange crossover between IoT and AI is on the cusp. We see it to a certain extent already with some robotics and self-driving cars. Self-driving everything is just around the corner. And it's just been around the corner for about 50 years now. So I'm not too sure when it's going to be pop, but when it does pop, it's going to be an amazing place. And I hope to be around when it happens. And we're seeing the starting of it now, I guess.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm still waiting for my flying car as well, right?
Yeah,
So
which we have to deal with this universe's particular rules of engagement, I guess. So you may not get that one. Yeah,
yeah, probably not for a while.
impossible is difficult to do, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Uh, Charles Dickens, the author, underrated or overrated?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably underrated because nobody these days actually tends to read it. And if you read it, it's once you get past the strange English, it's pretty amazing stuff. So yeah, um,
Right there
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Virtual reality experiences, underrated or overrated?
I think overrated. Yeah. I, I want a holodeck. I don't want to wear glasses.
Yeah, no, I got you. I did try out the Apple product when I had half an hour waiting for some
Yeah,
bad memory to be replaced, and it's actually pretty cool. But I
yeah,
get the feeling like the demo is the best it's ever going to be. That's the
yeah,
problem.
yeah. It still feels like a demo. Even
Lots
the
of
products feel like a demo.
lots of hype.
Yeah,
But
but
the
I want a
experience was
holodeck.
cool.
Yeah,
We want
holodeck
our
is what I want
holodeck.
to do. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, we want our holodeck.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley's innovation culture, underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated until you get here. Um, yeah, so I think that there's a locality to that. What I will tell you is, obviously I'm a Brit. I spent most of my life outside of Silicon Valley, and a lot of time on the East Coast with banking. And nobody's nobody in either of those worlds is. They have ideas and they don't talk about them, or they have ideas and they don't do anything about them. There's something magical about Silicon Valley in that people share their ideas freely. We did, everybody else did around us, and have good arguments and all the rest of it. And the bar isn't having a good idea. The bar is actually doing something about it. So execution
Right.
is how you get measured in the valley.
Yeah.
Um,
People
and
people figured that out. Yeah.
yeah, it has to be execution. So I did spend a lot of time in Deutsche Bank running the labs to try and inject that into the bank. With some success, I actually had a board meeting in the valley for Deutsche Bank, and once you get it, it's infectious, but it's difficult to get that sort of. I'm going to hold it close to my chest. I'm like, it's not the idea that's important; it's the execution that's important.
Yeah, exactly. The role of the CTO in a technology company, underrated or overrated?
I feel that's a difficult one because I'm a CTO and I'm not too sure what I do. So I think it'd be underrated and overrated depending how good the CTO is. CTO is a bit of a bad name, I think, because the chief technologist in AtSign certainly isn't me. It's the engineering team. They know stuff much better than I do. So yeah, I don't know. I don't even know whether you actually need a CTO, but you need to have a CTO. So
Yeah.
it's I try and I try as much as I can just to sort of look on the edges and let people that know what they're doing make the decisions, which is probably good advice for a CEO as well.
There you go. Take good advice from people who work for you, and hire people smarter than you and all that good stuff,
100%.
right? Yeah. How about the rise of social media influencers? Underrated or overrated?
um, some of them drive me crazy. Some of them are helpful, and I guess that's the same for everybody. Um, this idea that the world is flat and everybody can have a voice um, is good as you realize that you have a voice too,
Yeah.
right? So I think the social effects of like just listening to somebody else's regurgitating is that's very very dangerous, and we've become a
Yeah.
monoculture.
Oh yeah.
And just listening to people means you're not having an argument, and then you're scared of not bringing things up over the dinner table. That leads to bad things. So yeah, be thoughtful, and take their opinion and create your own, and be willing to discuss that opinion, and be humble enough to accept somebody else's opinion when they're right.
Yeah. Well, the other issue out there is a lot of social media influencers are just trying to get clicks. And if you go look at, X or TikTok, there are videos out there with terrible financial advice, right? So
Yeah,
you just have to be super, super careful and, check with reality before doing dumb stuff, right?
I think we can
Uh,
agree on that. Yeah.
yeah. Mobile first strategies for development, underrated or overrated?
I think that's overrated. Yeah, a lot of times you do need to have a big screen, you need to have big power and all the rest of it. That's not to say that we didn't have lots of our work's been mobile first because it's super convenient to have power at your fingertips. But sometimes you need more reader scale. Sometimes you need to do everything. So what I would say is core first. So write your core stuff first, and then put a skin of a mobile skin over the top of that core, or a desktop skin on top of that core. So if you look at most of the work that we've done, there's a core repo, and then there's a skin on top of it repo.
Yeah.
And that means you don't have to redo a whole bunch of work. So that's an architectural CTO answer to your question.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably a sensible one. Is it more difficult to do it that way? Yeah, it is. Um,
Yeah.
but if you look on the long term, it's the right way to do it.
See, maybe CTOs are useful.
Oh, I don't
And
know.
then, and then, and then finally, the movie, The Fifth Element, underrated or overrated?
I think underrated because not everybody's seen it. You should all go see it. It's a fantastic movie. Um, yeah, Bruce Willis at his absolute best, and Jean-Paul Gaultier did an incredible job with the costumes.
Oh, the costumes are ridiculous.
Yeah,
I can't
so
remember how much hair Bruce Willis has in that movie. I think he still has a fair amount
yeah,
of
it's
hair.
still a
So,
little bit. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's still a little bit.
yeah,
It's a sort of strange mixture of sci-fi and comedy and serious messaging. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, my absolute favorite movie.
Awesome.
And
Well,
in the middle of it, they say not without permission. So
right,
that's a
exactly.
probably
Not
good
without
one
permission.
to live.
Exactly. So, Colin, thanks for coming on the show. This has been Colin Constable, co-founder and CTO at AtSign. We all need private AI.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming on the show, Colin. Great to have you.
thanks so much for allowing me to be here. Thank you.